oversee both areas. We'll try that instead of this one. Just to oversee both facilities. And I was also lucky enough to be the lead zoo designer on the project, so I've been on the project since day one. But to see the vision come to life, and we were just talking about that a couple days ago, about as we were designing the park and doing all of that work, the vision was what we were going to be able to accomplish and then turn over to the teams to see what they could actually accomplish. And the growth that we've seen, the amazing accomplishments by all the different teams. And this day we get to highlight, again, as I said, sharks for Shark Week, which is really just, we've seen some amazing accomplishments within our Endless Ocean facility and our other habitats, but really, it's getting a chance to hear from the experts. Those are the ones that we want to hear about their passion and their desire. So I'm not going to stay up here any longer. I will just bounce back and forth as the host. But our first presenter is one of our senior aquarists, Jake Amateur. Jake has been with SeaWorld. How long, Jake? 17 years. That's something, as Jake's walking up here, I'll mention, we were lucky enough to bring so much experience over to share with everybody and to teach all the people that were coming in to work with us and our guests. And you guys are going to get 3 examples tonight of all of that experience that we have. So, Jake?
Hello, and welcome to Sharks of Endless Ocean. Let's see here. The PowerPoint doesn't seem to be going. Do we have one of the techs on staff here? Let's see. Am I pointing it at the right place, possibly? Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Oh, it appears to be going now. Technical difficulties, we're getting it sorted out. Okay, yeah, definitely. All right, yeah, hi. Well, like Rob said, my name is Jake, and I've been with SeaWorld for almost 17 years now. I was one of the first people here at Endless Ocean, so I got to see it sort of become what it is today. Which is one of the most dynamic habitats in the world. It was definitely designed to be a very immersive experience. So if you guys have actually seen Endless Ocean, it's to replicate really a big ocean drop-off, a tropical ocean drop-off that lets you explore many, many different environments throughout the habitat. One of which you can start with, actually, would be the oculus window. So you guys have seen our large oculus window. You'll definitely see the endless vista. And there's a ton of unique viewing opportunities throughout the habitat to actually see most of our aquatic friends. Yeah. So we're going to advance the slide here. Endless Ocean design, let's get into the meat and bones of the aquarium. So Endless Ocean is about 20 million liters with an average depth of about 20 meters. Its deepest point is at the Endless Vista, which is at, I think, 21.8 or so, according to my watch. The ecosystem houses over 8,600 individuals across 87 different species, one of which is our 500 kilogram manta ray, all the way down to a 20-gram damselfish, so quite a variety. of life. What we're looking at over here is one of the early models of Endless Ocean. So this is one of our first looks, and it's actually pretty close to what it looks like today if you were to drain the system. That would be quite the endeavor at 20 million liters. But these are some old, early concept designs that are just fun to share with you guys. This is our iconic Oculus window and our endless vista. So we've got about 5 stories of scaffolding that most of our aquarists had to climb through every day to make sure we got aquarium-focused eyes on the system before we actually were able to go in and install most of our facades and concrete and rock work. So every day we would be out there in hard hats and vests, climbing up and down through all the little things, making sure that we're building it to spec and making sure that it was safe for most of our animals who went in. This is actually a little video of the Endless Vista window going in. So I think if we hit space, it should play. There it goes. So this is one of the largest cranes I think I've ever seen. This is lifting also one of the largest pieces of acrylic on the planet. Single pieces of acrylic. There are 2, the Oculus window and the Endless Vista, that were both craned up into the habitat and had to be placed in along with the 17 other windows that are in there that we're looking at from multiple perspectives. You guys can kind of see how bare it is now. Most of it is shallow reefs and sanctuaries for smaller fish that you would find hiding, and then this is a little sped up view of it. And there it is being placed. Okay, I think we'll just advance through here. So a lot of Endless Ocean we had to actually go in through. They weren't just dry inspections, it was a lot of diving inspections. Rob joined us, a lot of the people in the room here joined us on them. You can see a picture of me holding a piece of facade that came right off. This is exactly why we had to inspect most of the habitat. Pieces were falling off left and right, but we had to go in and actually make sure that a lot of the materials that we were using were quality materials and that were being used properly. They were corrected. You can also see our little list on the bottom there. Also another piece coming off. That was a list of a catalog that we had of things that we needed to look at during our inspections. Endless Ocean is not a perfect square, so it's 20 meters deep. So a lot of planning had to go into actually inspecting the aquarium, dive planning. So a lot of it is like we're doing ocean dives almost every day down in there. Advance that slide over too. And our marine colleagues moving in. So when you fill an aquarium of that size, there's an immense amount of pressure on a lot of the walls. 20 million liters of water, once again, is being cycled through 37 filters. That water has to get filtered quite often to add beneficial bacteria. We ended up filling it up to 3 times, I believe. Can't remember, but once again, quality control. That's a lot of water being held back by those walls at this point. As far as fish moving in, we moved in about 400 to 600, I think, yellow line snappers, which I do have a video of. They were the first animals in the habitat. They're still in there today. As soon as we put them in, they went straight to the bottom, as all the fish do, but that was followed by the cow-nose rays, and then also our sharks, which we're able to go into further depth about, bringing them in. And then we had to bring up our mobula. And the biggest challenge was figuring out how to care for these guys. So they all eat in very individual, unique ways. The mobula being probably the most unique, the sharks pulling them up off of the bottom and enticing them into actually eating from tongs from us, the aquarists, was also one of the most challenging. And like I said, when I hand that off to Ray, he'll go into a little bit more depth about that. And then just advance that more time. And this is a little moment of Zen. These are the first colleagues to enter the aquarium. So if you look at the center of the slide, you'll find some of our blue line snapper moving across the bottom. And those were the first fish to enter the aquarium. All right, and then at this point, I'll throw it back to you, Rob. That concludes.
Thanks, Jake. I will tell you some of those pictures brought back some very good memories and some very challenging memories. I will tell you, Jake kind of softballed it a little bit about having to go up and down the scaffolding multiple times a day to check that. But if you do multiple times a day when the building is not sealed, so you still have all the heat and all the humidity coming in and doing that, it is definitely a really good workout by the end of the day. But it was done to make sure that everything was perfect before all of the animals went in. It was a lot of work by everybody, but a huge amount of work by the aquarium team to make sure that everything was ready for their population. All right, we're going to pass it over to another one of our senior aquarists. Ray Valdez has been at SeaWorld for not quite as long as Jake, but still a number. I'm sorry? About 7 years. Came also from our San Diego SeaWorld Park out to do that, and he's going to take this to the next phase of what we're doing. As Jake put it, and nobody got the joke, I don't think, but Jake said Ray's going to do a little bit deeper dive into this.
Thanks, Rob. All right. Like Rob said, my name is Ray Valdez, and I am one of the senior aquarists over here at Endless Ocean, and I help take care of all the sharks and the rays and all the other fish. Oh, it works now? I got it, Jake. All right, so we're going to start off with basically what targeting is, and just a really quick definition of targeting. So targeting is a certain training method that you use for animals to recognize a specific object, either touch it or follow it. So for us at Endless Ocean, our sharks their targets are more of a feeding station exactly. So it's a visual cue for them to come up, and that's where we want to feed them. Sorry. So our sharks arrived at SeaWorld in the quarantine well before the Endless Ocean was actually complete. So we had plenty of time downstairs to actually get them organized and recognize our targets that we wanted them to do. So we first started with small little colored cutting boards, roughly the size of a piece of paper. And we were able to pick out different colors to recognize for all of our different species of sharks. So we had to feed them at the same time and in different areas. We had 5 different species show up, and roughly about a couple months of each other. And they were held in 3 different habitats. Our scallop hammerheads and our small zebra sharks were held in one habitat. Our gray reef sharks and our one larger zebra shark was held in a different one. And the majority of our sharks, our sand tigers and our sandbars, were held in our larger habitat pool. When we were feeding them, the larger sharks, we were fed off with tongs that held off with their larger pieces of food, made it easier for them to eat, while our smaller sharks, we organized modified PVC pipes that we used and cable ties to facilitate the smaller pieces for them. While we feed them, we were feeding multi-species pools. They were fed at different locations at the same time. So, for example, our sand tigers and our sandbars, we fed them at the same time. We separated the pool, so our sandbars went one way and our sand tigers went the other way. It helped recognize them, so when we brought them up to Endless Ocean, they wouldn't mix and we wouldn't have to deal with any competition with different species of sharks. The one challenging aspect that we had, though, when we moved them up is everything kind of reset when we actually let them out into the habitat. There's a lot of new smells, new sights, new sounds, The exhibit was different, pressure when they went to the bottom. So they kind of forgot what happened, all that training downstairs. So we had to bring them back up slowly but surely. It took a long time to do it, but eventually we got all of our animals that we feed back up top. So, real quick, these are the targets that we use right now. The left one over there on the top left is just our sand tiger target. It's about that tall, big circle. When you put it in the exhibit though, it looks about the size of the microphone. It's very, very tiny. So it's very challenging for the sharks to see it from 20 meters deep. Our scallop hammerheads and our reef sharks, they are actually in a different pool, but it's a lot easier for them to see. We still use a bigger target for them though, so when they do move over into the endless ocean, they can actually see it too. Our zebra sharks, luckily, they are very food motivated, so they come right up to the food. They have the pole with the cable tie. They come right up to the window. Very, very simple. And then the other two zebra sharks are our programs. They have a different style of target, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so there's a quick video on this one too. So this is kind of our benthic feed. I'll talk about that too. So we record all of our information from their swimming behaviors to how much they eat, their weight, their breeding activities, and all this information is recorded in our computerized tracking system. And it enables us to keep a record and keep how much their growth rate and their activity levels and all that throughout the year. Gives us a really precise record for each individual animal. All right, so the video is what we do when we are feeding our benthic rays. We feed some of our benthic rays at 20 meters deep, and we have certain divers down there that are responsible only for sharks. Their job is to make sure none of these animals come in and bother our rays or bother our feeders. In the very beginning, the sharks are small, very, very simple to spot them. They're kind of weary of us. They want to come away or come near us, and we push them away. Nowadays, they've grown a significant amount. They're a little more curious. They'll come in a little bit closer. And they still don't bother us too much, but we just got to be there anyways. So these guys did a really good example of how to deter our shark peacefully and gently. We have a bunch of other different ways to help catch and move the sharks up top if we need them to do for any husbandry reasons or any vet standards. On the next slide, I'll have a couple. We use different size bags, different size nets, barriers, stretchers, a bunch of different things, and it helps easier for us to regulate them. So we have the green panels are barriers, so when they get into our husbandry pool, we can move them and corral them into a smaller section. We got different size nets over there, and then a couple bags too. This video is just real quick of catching one of our sand daggers and bringing them up top. Let it play. So what we're doing in this one, wrangling them into our stretcher, catching them, and we moved 4 to 8 sand daggers a day, depending on their size and depending on how big their size into our pool. So 1 to 2 sharks were placed in the pool, oxygenated water. We were using a proactive treatment in there to help knock down any parasites that they would have. Acclimation was already done to the pool, and we moved them up through the elevator. Just chilling. After we got them up top and that treatment was done, we released them into our husbandry pool and let them hang out till we got ready for them to move them. All right, so we moved all of our 16 sand daggers up in 3 days. It's a crazy process. It was really fun. I had the best time doing that though. We released them into that husbandry pool. We let them stay in there for about a week or so. We wanted to make sure every single one ate before we actually released them into the main exhibit. Once they all ate, we would open the gate, let them go out on their own. The funny thing was though, everybody thinks sharks are big, scary creatures. We opened that gate, half of them went out, turned right back around, came right back in. They saw that exhibit, they said, nope. Saw all the rays, they didn't want nothing to do with it. They stayed in the husbandry pool for another several days before they actually left. So they're not big and scary, guys. Okay. All right. So once we put them in, they kind of went straight to the bottom. Just like every other fish did, they wanted to go to the bottom, hang out. That's what they wanted to do. So it was a real challenge trying to bring everybody back up. We took a 10-meter pole, hung it to a string, threw it down as steep as we could with fish, scented the water like crazy, and we just tried to get these guys back up. We would drag it around, and eventually somebody would eat. Once we got one to eat, multiple ate. Then we slowly pulled that pole up, little by little. They eat about halfway, and then eventually we got them all the way to the surface. So it took a long time. We would come in every day at 5 a.m., 2-3 hours, and do this. Multiple people, 4 or 5 people try this. It was a very long process to do, but it all worked, and now all the sharks come back up to eat. We have one that eats on the bottom, but she eats up top every once in a while too. So we feed our guys 3 times a week. Not every shark eats every single feed though, which is okay. They get 2 to 3% of their body weight per food per week. And all this, like I said earlier, is all tracked and recorded. So we can keep track of that, analyze it every week, and change our diet if we really need to. The tricky thing is though, these guys' feed are very complex. All of our aquarists need to know how to ID them. So each shark, luckily, you can ID based off of identifying marks and spots. So I got a video of one, and I can show you kind of what we see. The other tricky thing is they don't eat like a normal shark. They eat from left to right, a little bit more of a snapping motion. So you have to hold that food at a specific angle and away from the wall. So let's see. This is a quick video of basically the first steps, having them feed on the bottom. We would just throw it on the bottom and just kind of wait for them to come around. She's right around the corner, and you'll see her grab it and come right up around the side. There she is. And this was kind of a slow process eventually, and we get them all coming up. Now this was about halfway up the wall. This is very difficult to control, this pole in the water. It just kind of moves around. We don't have much control over it at all. And she's gone. And then this one is a good example of how they eat from the side. And that's right up the surface, right off our tongs. So this is kind of what we have to look at. Most people just see a big brown shark with some dots on them. But if you look at her closely, she's covered on spots. So what I see is right in front of her dorsal fin, there's a kind of a half an A. That is how I identify this shark. Other people see a little bit different markings, but as long as we all see the same animal, we don't care what you see on them. All right, so some of the other sharks we have in there, we have our gray reefs and our sandbars. Initially, the plan was to feed them over oculus, same way, use a pole, use tongs, bring them up to the surface. That was the initial plan. But they didn't want to do that. We got a couple that come up, we got a couple to eat. We tried for months and months, and we never got a gray reef to eat. We only got a few sandbars. So we decided that it was best for them to just include their food into our exhibit feed. So now they eat twice a day, if they want to or not, but we still monitor their body condition. We still monitor how they are. Every single day we will look and watch these sharks. The last 2 sharks that we have zebra sharks and our scalloped hammerheads. Our zebra sharks, the ones that we feed, they are fed, where am I? There we go. They are fed on our vista window at the surface. We also do a lot of training with them for stretcher training. We feed them into the stretcher. The end goal is for them to kind of sit there, eat for a while so we can use them for husbandry reasons, vet purposes, get them nice and calm to us touching them, and doing anything that we really need to for that reason. The other guys, the other 2 that we have, so our guest dive programs, they have 2 that they train. Their training is a little bit more different. They would train on the sea trek area. One uses a solid yellow target. The other one uses a glove that is bright yellow as well. Their reason why they trained is so they can use them for guest interactions, and also for other husbandry reasons as well. They'll have them, they'll come to them, they'll feed them, they'll flip them over belly side up. We can examine their ventral side, their mouth. We can do all this other examinations to make it a little easier for us. Let's see, scallops. So these are my favorite sharks in here. So the scallop hammerhead, everybody knows what they look like. Their heads are very weird shaped, nice and wide. So we had to modify their PVC poles, their feeding sticks to make it easier for them to eat. We just bent it so they swam right over top of it. That way they wouldn't hit the wall, hit the stick, prevent their eyes from any damage. Makes it easier for them. Also, as we continue to build better husbandry standards for them, we worked with a lot of different facilities and made custom stretchers. So that's the stretcher over there, up in the right corner. It is designed so their head is completely exposed, but it is strapped in. So they can't turn and thrash or anything like that, but it protects their eyes so they're not hitting anything against any sensitive materials. And our last little bit, this is a real quick example of our exhibit feeds, where every animal that we have in there eats every single feed. Doesn't matter if we're feeding them individually or not, they just kind of do what they want. And I don't remember what they're eating here today. But yeah, that is it for me. Rob?
Thanks, Ray. Don't go anywhere. Jake, come on up. If you guys each want to grab a chair and kind of set it up, we're going to do a little bit of a panel session. I also get to introduce the third person that's going to talk with us tonight, with over 20 years experience in SeaWorld, aquarium manager Sabrina Lane. Yep, you good? Yeah, why don't you take, if you want to take those two, I'll grab this one. Before we get into some questions, I'm going to let Sabrina talk a little bit about maybe some of her favorite thoughts about starting the Endless Ocean and what she's seen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sabrina. I think these guys did a really good job of explaining a little bit about what our team kind of went through from the start. I came here in 2021 to a big construction zone. These guys came in 21 or 22.
Yeah, I think it was 22. I was about 6 months ahead of Ray, I believe, yeah.
And I've never done a pre-open before. It was different. Coming from an aquarium that's already operational, you know, there's established protocols and there's standards and you know your team and you know what you're doing. And I think here it was very exciting to be able to build that as our own team. But it was also very challenging. I think we have team members from India, Colombia, South Africa, the US, Sri Lanka, and so Philippines, Indonesia. And so we've all come from very different backgrounds and different facilities. And so I think it was really exciting to come and meet all these new people, but also very overwhelming for us to try to establish SOPs and safety protocols and realize even us, like as a management team and a senior team, we haven't worked together before. So I think for us, realizing, what do you know? What have you worked with? What have I worked with? How did you do it? And, you know, at California, what did you guys do? And while you're also intaking fish in the middle of the night and sharks in the middle of the night, and then you take care of those animals the next day, and then you're doing quarantines, and you have more animals coming, and you're planning those shipments and the scheduling, and you know, working with the vets and establishing who we are as SeaWorld it was a lot. It was some crazy memories of driving forklifts and, you know, going through hallways and opening a lid and seeing, you know, an animal that just arrived and, you know, watching those animals kind of graduate into their final exhibit was really satisfying to see them, all the sharks that we worked so hard for. turn around and not go out into the exhibit was a little hilarious for us. But it was great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, now we want to give a chance for you guys to ask some questions of the three experts. There should be some of the staff around with microphones, I hope, that are going to run to the person that raised their hand. So whoever's got the first question, we can do that. Or we don't have microphones, so I'm going to go move and do this. Well, the experts sit up here, and I'm going to run the microphone around until we can get another set of microphones.
So my name is Mohammed Ahmed. I've come to a lot of SeaWorld talks before, so I use this strategy a lot, and I'm just gonna cheat and ask 2 questions instead. So what exact methods did you use to train the sharks, and why only these sharks in specific rather than other species?
So in order for us to do the training for the sharks, it was more of just using their motivation for food. We would have their targets in the water, we put the food on the tongs, and we just kind of slowly work them over to where we wanted to feed them. But we use that motivation of them wanting to actually eat something to bring them over. And certain sharks, like zebra sharks, are very, very food motivated. But they pick it up very simple or very quick. While sand tigers, for example, take a little bit longer because they don't feel like eating every single time. So they might take a couple extra weeks to get to where we want them to go. But that's how we really moved them up.
Yeah, I think, we have a good variety of species here. Some of our species you can see in a lot of aquariums. They're a well-established aquarium species. They also highlight a lot of different varieties of sharks. So I'm a big fan of our scalloped hammerheads. They're a critically endangered species, so to be able to highlight them in our swirl habitat, so it's the very first thing that guests see when they come into Endless Ocean. I love them. They're just such a unique species, and they're not as easy to see in a lot of aquariums. There's other species of hammerheads like bonnet heads that you can find, but I'm a big fan of our scallops. But sand tigers, I think, are like those are the highlight species. We have 16 of them. They're really impressive, especially at the windows and the dome when you're on the bottom and you just see all of those sharks swim by with all of their teeth just hanging out of their mouth. It's kind of that iconic shark species people are here to see. But then we have the little zebra sharks, and I mean, they're the cutest sharks ever. Everybody loves them. It highlights a different type of shark, and it really kind of covers, we have 19 sandbar sharks as well. We have our gray reef sharks in there. So it's a lot of different species, shapes, sizes, and locations from around the world all in one place.
Yeah, and I think you'll find their personalities come out in different ways. Like our zebra sharks are real searchers, so they're always searching for food, which I think makes them very easy to feed. On the other hand, we have our gray reefs, which are a little bit more shy in general and almost never come to the surface. So they like to troll the bottom and eat from our broadcast, which is what we call our big exhibit feed. We do that, as Ray said, twice a day. And you can really catch them when you explore the bottom parts of Endless Ocean and you kind of see the canyon walk windows and the canyon walk views in the places that are a little bit less conspicuous.
Thank you.
And I get to go back and sit down because now we have Dr. Villy and Dr. Matt with the microphones to run around.
Oh, very nice.
Hi. So I was just wondering, did you consider any other type of shark species rather than what you decided to bring into the actual park? And are you guys partnered with any marine reserves that bring these animals in?
Well, we are still considering lots of sharks to bring into the habitat and ecosystem itself. We are currently not partnered with marine reserves. I don't know how much I can speak to that, but Rob can
So,
though, but
so
yes.
when we're looking at, from the original design part, and the aquarium boss, Mike Price, is sitting in the back, so Mike can speak to this as well, about looking at how we designed the entire population. Looking at what originally we thought could work together, would work well, from experience from so many different years and so many different facilities that we work with. And then, now that we've got a facility that's established, the animals are doing well, now we look at how it's going to grow. So now we will work with other aquarium zoological facilities around the world that may have surplus, that may have been successful with the different species that we have. If we become successful with these species, we could share them with other facilities. But really the big thing is communicating with both aquariums and governments and private facilities around the world to see who's done what and what could be next. It's continuing to learn. We are fortunate to have the largest multi-species marine life habitat in the world in the endless ocean. So it gives us so much more space to work with, so much more depth. And so looking at how we add ambassadors for these species to teach all our guests how important sharks are and why we should protect the environment and why we should make sure their habitat is correct. They help us do that. So the fun part for me is sitting back and watching all of the experts come up with what's next. And that's what we're doing now, is everything else has established itself. All right, who's got another question? Matt, you got one?
Hi, guys. Thank you. That was great. So, do the sharks ever go after live fish? And if they don't, why not?
So this is such a huge aquarium. It is multi-species. It's really never been done before. So since it is huge, we have a lot of room for a lot of animals. As you could see from our big broadcast feed video, we put a lot of food in that exhibit every day. We hand feed our eagle rays, our mobula, our manta. We tongue feed, a lot of the sharks. It's not to stop them from eating from the feed. So you will notice a lot of our sharks and fish are healthy, sturdy, I like to call them. And so I think satiating the animals is really important. Sharks are such opportunistic feeders that their natural instinct is, to put it plainly, to be lazy. Most of them in the ocean, they're just looking for their next meal. They're really important for the ocean's health to be eating diseased, dying animals, keeping our oceans healthy. So for them, chasing an animal around an exhibit that's really healthy, as a cold-blooded animal, they're not really inclined to do that most of the time, especially if they know that, this afternoon I'm gonna get some clam, falling down from the top here, so I'll snack on that instead. And so I think, for us during these feeds, it might look like when you're down there and we have our afternoon feeds and you're just seeing all this food falling, what you're not really seeing is all of our aquarists watching through the windows and noting who's eating what. Is there an animal that's not coming over to the feeds that maybe we need to pull for a check or we need to look at? And so, most of the animals don't really have that instinct to hunt each other in here, but there are prey and there are predators living together. So in the exhibit, a lot of times what we see is collision injuries, where our animals, our cow nose, if they're breeding and they're swimming through the exhibit really quickly, you see those sand tigers just swimming around with their teeth sticking out of their mouth, and a lot of the animals will swim into the sharks. I've seen an eagle ray hit a sand tiger in the face, and the sand tiger, swims the other direction. So with all of these animals living together, of course, there's, interactions between them. But if there is collision injuries or an animal does have a cut on its wing or something that needs to be looked at, we have a full-time vet staff and vet techs who can come. We have our husbandry pools, and we can get those animals up and get them any treatment that they require.
Billy, you got one? Pick one.
Hello. wanted to ask about the acclimating process. I know that you have a lot of species of sharks and their parameters differ quite vastly, but I wanted to know what kind of behaviors and conditions that you're specifically looking out for and how you kind of help or aid them in that. And is there like a specific amount of time that you acclimate them for? Thank you.
So for the acclimation part is, luckily all the species we have right now, their parameters are very, very similar. So whatever pool we had them in, we would slowly acclimate that over about a week times to the actual exhibit that we were moving them to. So the parameters for the temperatures were within a couple of degrees when they started, salinity, pH, it was very, very similar. What we're mainly looking for is swimming behavior, activity level still, we want to make sure all that's still normal, their breathing rate, making sure that's still in an acceptable range. When those start to drop or increase and we realize that something might be wrong, we can always pull that animal to the side, put them in a different pool, and then get work on them with our vet staff. But that's how, depending on the species though, it could take up to a week and how fast we want to actually acclimate them. If it's one animal in a smaller pool, we can usually do it in a couple hours. It just varies on the pool that they're coming from parameter-wise to the pool that they're going to. We don't ever want to increase the salinity more than about 1 ppt per hour, so it just is a little bit slower rate on that end.
Yeah, so most of those animals did arrive by cargo plane. So they were shipped to us, and they were acclimated over a very long period of time, usually 12 hours. Yes, and they're in their own large transports for the most part. But yeah, normally they would be shipped to us from the facilities that we acquire them from within at least 12 to 24 hours. Yes, absolutely. So we drive them from a truck straight from the airport. We're fortunate enough to be very close to the airport. So we would drive them over to our acclimation facility. We have a couple of holding facilities where they're kind of like a pre-staging quarantine before they go into endless ocean. We obviously don't want to risk introducing any sort of parasites or anything like that into the ecosystem. So they are monitored for at least 30 days before they go in. Minimum. We sometimes extend that if we have questions or concerns. But yeah, that's for the most part, they do arrive by plane and then truck and then usually forklift because they're very, very heavy. Our largest shark. Oh boy, we probably have some female sand tigers that are about 150 kilos, I would say. They're quite large. They're going to get larger. But those are the largest animals in our current populations right now.
Hi, my name's Nathan, and
Hi, Nathan.
I was wondering where you get these sharks and sea animals from. Like, do you get them from other SeaWorlds in like San Diego and stuff?
Great question. We will get them from the SeaWorld parks. We will get them from other zoological facilities. We will get them from private collections. We'll work with everybody around the world. One of the really, really cool things that we get a chance to see, especially once we got the park open and could talk about it, because we were pretty quiet as we were designing the park, was connecting around the world. The zoological industry, once you really start looking at it, is quite small. Everybody tends to know everybody, so we can reach out to the Georgia Aquarium and talk with their experts and share things. And now with what we've accomplished here, with what this team has accomplished, they get to do that. They get to share with other facilities. So really the idea is identifying who's working with what, which animals we think would work well, and then starting that process, as Jake talked about doing transports.
And do you ever get scared when you're feeding the animals?
Never.
Not with feeding. Every once in a while, though, they'll grab the tongs and rip them out in your hands, though. So, And they'll slash it. too.
How many people on this stage have dropped tongs while feeding sharks? I'm not really feeding the sharks that much, unfortunately. but-
How many people
No, we
have
have to go
bent the
get tongs a lot off the bottom because they'll grab it, and obviously we don't want to do any damage, so we just let them go and they'll drop it, and then we go get them later, and then we secretly make fun of the person who dropped them.
Really, the biggest thing about that is you're not scared of an animal, you respect it. You know what it can do if it's put in a situation and you don't want to put in that situation, but the amount of respect that the team has with all of their animals is really what allows them to be as comfortable as they are and confident. I mean, we dive with them multiple times a day in different ways of doing that, and the animals are calm and relaxed. But the team will pick up something really quickly if an animal looks like it's changing its behavior. I'm amazed when I get a chance to go in, because I sneak in and hop in the water every once in a while, and to listen to the stories and to the comments when we get out of the water, what they picked up on, these little tiny behavioral changes, is truly amazing. But that's what allows that whole habitat to work with the staff and the guests inside of it.
Thank you.
In the back? Matt's got it. And then, ma'am, we'll come to you next. We'll come to you next. We'll do this one and then that one.
Hello, thank you so much for such a nice talk. I was wondering, what are the biggest medical challenges you guys face with such a big tank? And if you guys ever had any animals you weren't ever able to reintroduce into the tank?
The biggest medical challenges is if there is someone on the bottom, is just getting them back to the surface. It is a 20-meter deep pool, and some of these sharks are very large. We do put in 7-8 people to get an animal if we need to, but trying to either corral them up to using our steering methods or our sticks, or if we really need to use a bag to get them up, either way, trying to catch that animal is the most difficult thing that we would have to do.
Yeah, it's a really big pool. I think sometimes if you see something and we talk about it in the morning and we set up a dive, it takes minimum 4 people to dive. And if you're trying to catch an animal, then we need to ask other teams to come and help our team. Our team is 17 people. So on a daily basis, there's sometimes like 6 to 10 people there that are doing all the feeds and all the dives and everything that's going on for the day. And so I think, if there is an animal that has not eaten, for a couple days that we want to go check on or go, bring the animal up to the husbandry pool to make sure that we're, getting it extra attention, maybe getting the vets to come take a blood on it, make sure that it's looking okay. Sometimes you have to do multiple dives per day, and everybody on the team can't dive to 20 meters for more than 30, 45 minutes, and then you can't dive again for several hours. So I think dealing with what we want to do and what we physically are able to do with our diving profiles is sometimes, I think, our biggest challenge. It's easy to go and get animals sometimes, but sometimes the animal is like, no thanks, I'm good.
Yeah, especially with some of the larger sharks that are down on the bottom. If there is something that we want to do or the vets are asking us to do, occasionally the best thing we can do is encourage that animal into the right direction, which would be our husbandry pool and our holding. But really, at the end of the day, we can't do anything beyond ask that animal to move into a space where we can help it. So sometimes it takes time, and that can be frustrating and can be time consuming. Typically, we get there and we get to the answer, but at that point, often it's quite a long time to get them up there. It's more of a bit of a stroke of luck. It's a big pull.
And in answer to the second half of your question, when we were doing the design work on this, one of the things that you'll hear from most aquariums around the world is we don't have enough holding. We wanted to make sure that the team wouldn't be able to say that by the amount of holding we've put in. So a very large holding pool. So if we do have an animal that isn't doing well with the group at that time, the team can go get them, move them out, put them in a holding area, work with them, and see when they're ready to be reintroduced back in. But we do have plenty of space to move animals around if we need to.
And we keep talking about our husbandry pool, and I just realized that probably doesn't make sense to some of you guys, and I'm sorry. Our husbandry pool is located within Endless Ocean, and so it's an area that we can open or close gates, and it's about the size of an enormous swimming pool / normal-sized aquarium. And so it's every time that there's nothing in there, which is great, the gates can be open and the animals are free to swim through there. So we do a lot of our feeds in that pool to make it a positive space. But if we do need to keep an eye on an animal or move it up to the husbandry pool, we can close those gates so it's still within the exhibit. And then once the check is done, it can just go back onto exhibit. So it's a really good space for us to have kind of like an internal pool without having to physically move an animal to the animal care center or another exhibit.
Yes, ma'am?
So I have a question about breeding of sharks. So I guess you have, with the different shark species, we have different ways of reproduction. I guess, I don't know, the different, I guess you have also oviviparous sharks and so on. Are there any breeding programs, or how are you excluding reproduction of the sharks completely?
So no, not currently. Most of our sharks are still kind of in the juvenile stage. So when they came to us, they were young sharks we call pups. A lot of them were pups and looked very, very small in this ocean. We haven't ruled that out for future plans. Some of the species, of course, are much more complicated than others. Our zebra sharks or Indo-Pacific leopard sharks, whichever you would like to call them now, they're a little bit easier than our sand tigers. I think recently there was a facility in Australia that had a sand tiger born, which is very, very rare. It's only occurred a couple times in the last decade. But I mean, we're hopeful, and I think we have the resources, and we're working with our vet staff for future plans to get us there.
That's
I hope
great.
that answers.
So good luck.
Thank you.
I would love to have little baby sharks. I think that would be amazing. Now, it's a huge facility. It's a big pool, and we have more sharks than, more sand tigers than anyone. So I think we're hoping to see some breeding in the future so that we can participate and our vets can take samples and, like Rob was saying, share that information with other facilities as well.
Philly, I think you got one right there.
How many, did you rescue any sharks in Abu Dhabi?
Oh, we haven't rescued any sharks yet in Abu Dhabi, but if you have seen our big rescue facility, it is equipped to rescue sharks here in Abu Dhabi and in the Gulf region abroad. Does that answer your question?
Our rescue team here has seen a bowmouth guitarfish that was rescued here. So we're on call all the time. Our rescue team is always out there. So if a shark needs us, then we'll for sure go out.
How many shark species are there?
We have 5 different species of sharks. We have 7 zebra sharks, 6 scallop hammerheads. 6 different species of sharks. 5 black-tip reef sharks, 5 gray reef sharks, 19 sandbars, and 16 sand tigers, all in one exhibit.
Thank you.
We also have small species of sharks in Abu Dhabi Ocean. I won't forget about the little ones. Not all sharks are big, all sharks are important.
And in puffer, or puffin. Yeah, some in puffin. And puffin.
All right, any other questions out there, folks? Okay.
They can. Do they care to see people? Not really. But they can see you. Most of the time, though, sharks' vision is okay. They use all their other senses to navigate and to hunt and to just exist. So their visions are, they're all right, but they can't see through the glass. The zebras are a little bit better at it.
I think for the shark spotting that you guys saw as well, the sticks that we were using, they're like a white PVC stick with black tape on it. That's a really contrasted like colors for the animals to recognize as well. Just because underwater they kind of just get in their swim pattern, and if you're in the way, some of them will swim right into you, which is why we have shark spotting. But that stick, it's not to protect us really. It's more of a visual barrier so the animals recognize something is there, and that way we can just hold the stick out and kind of just transition them into changing their swim pattern away from us. So it's just safer for us. It avoids any interaction with the sharks as well. But yeah, they can. We can see through the glass when we're in there too.
Yeah, sand tigers are very stubborn, so if they want to go straight, they're going to go straight until you kind of block them off or get in their way or some type of action to turn them away from you.
Well, great. Everybody, thank you very much for coming out. If you keep an eye on the website, there'll be the setup for next month's Science Talk. Dr. Elise will be back from leave, so you get to have her back from the host. And if we get a round of applause for the 3 experts that are sitting up here, they did a great job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Rob.
coming and learning about our sharks.